I'm kind of gonna piggyback off that, Hughes. A song that stood out to me, Avian. We kind of talked about that a little bit. The line that kind of stood out to me was, "There's a bird in the sky, look at him fly, and then why, and then why, and why, and why." And so, the first thing, that's pretty much the basis of No Pressure, Finding Happiness in a Fear-Driven World, written by Dylan Hughes, asking that question. At some point, we all do. At some point, we all do, as Dylan mentions. And so I, I think that there's two different ways that that pathway can lead you. If you ask yourself, if you ask why, it's I guess, a love-based version of everything is connected, right? Everything is together, everything's, meant to happen. It is what it's supposed to, it is what it is, kind of. Uh, and then the opposite way, which I kind of feel that Mac went, right? Where everything, he's separate from everything. Why, what am I when you ask this? And so, what pathways do you think that question can lead us to, and how do we ensure that the pathways lead to something positive and not self-destructive?
Yeah, that is a really good question, and that's actually one I thought about last night. And God, is this is I think my next step personally is really I'm just becoming so fascinated with human behavior and like why we do things. And I think obviously the first step is the ego, which we talk a lot about, but we get so tied up in the ego and our thoughts, and that is where the destruction comes from. And again, as a human, it's so easy to just look at other people and be like, hey, like if I can do this, you can do this. Like, stop, worrying so much. And that's something I've definitely done in the past where I figure something out and I want to look at someone else that's struggling and be like, just do it. Like it's not really as easy as it seems.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one thing I was thinking about last night listening to these songs was I was just saying in my head, like, just stop thinking of the
Right.
world this way. Stop worrying so much about why and how and all this stuff. Just live. That's kind of what the point of my book was too, was to push people in this direction that all of this exterior stuff, the thoughts of yourself, the thoughts of others, is never going to help you for the most part. Like, you just have to go. You just have to move forward all the time. And I think that was definitely one of Mac's downfalls, is that he was constantly stuck in his head. And he talked about that a
Yeah.
lot.
Yep.
He started off Circles, I believe, with a line like that. So it was something that was very evident that he could really never move forward. And that was one thing, another theme I saw was that he learned but never changed, I think was one thing I
Yes.
saw.
Yes.
Because he was talking about the stuff in 2014 that he was still talking about in 2018.
Yeah.
Like he learned this stuff long ago, but he never changed. In the one song where you can see that perfect circle Godspeed on Good AM, where the second half Godspeed, he talks about that. He's like, I know the drugs are probably going to kill me. I have to change. My mistakes don't make me. I need to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a song there's a lot of songs like that where he sees it, he says it, but he doesn't do anything about it. I think he wanted to do something about it, but he never did. And for years we saw the music continue to say this, I know I have a problem. Faces was a lot of that too. I know I have a problem, I have to change this, but I can't. And he got to the point of swimming in circles where it was just kind of that acceptance phase where he's like, what I'm seeking is not going to come to me. I have to just kind of accept and embrace that other side.
Yeah.
And I think that was his final frontier, was that he just could not move on from the abstract idea of life. Whatever, and this is another problem with human behavior and expectation is expectation.
Mm-hmm.
He expected the world to be something else, clearly, because he never got what he wanted. Instead of just living in the world that he was a part of, that came at him, he kept kind of envisioning something else.
Yeah.
And when he never got that, he kept going back to the drugs to find it. And you want to talk about an abstract world, that's what you get when you're on drugs. So
Yeah.
that was kind of the world that he lived in and he chose to live in. And it's sad, but like he is not even close to the only one that deals with that.
Uh, living in the past, Hughes, and living in the future. When I think of that in comparison to Mac Miller, living in the past for Mac was his addiction to drugs. That's how he's kind of always been. That's how he knows. That's how he could get into the world that he wants. Living in the future for Mac, for me, is him trying to create his reality, his sober reality, into the abstract world that is the drugs. And so he keeps going back and forth to wanting to live in this perfect world and his vices have always controlled him in the past. And so that's something that Eckhart Tolle talks about in The Power of Now. And so that kind of goes along with living in your head, living in your head the whole time, whether it be issues, regrets, lessons from the past that you just keep replaying over and over and over, or dreams about the future. And in The Power of Now, what Toll kind of talks about is live in now, live in the current reality, look into the reality, look where you are right now, and just live in it. The issues that come up from the past will come up and you need to learn from them. Then, like what he mentions is that the lessons will come up. Your ego, your mind will take over when it's needed. The only way you could ever change, though, is not by looking forward or looking back, by addressing it in the now. And my take on that in comparison to Mac Hughes is that he kind of got overwhelmed by his mind and by those lessons, and kind of focused on the lessons and not necessarily what he could do to change them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly what it was. And again, it was he learned the lessons and he was able to tell us or show us what they were, and he was able to describe how they impacted him.
Mm-hmm.
But he was never able to move forward. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's a perfect example, and that's why like I'm so passionate about talking about the ego so much, because it literally rules all of us, and most people don't even know what it does. And me and you, over the past year especially, have been able to really finally grasp what that means, and have been able to use it to our favor. I think when you understand what the ego's role actually is, and that it really is separate from who you are, you're able to just look at the world a lot differently and look at yourself a lot differently. And what we hold on to in the past goes away, because the past is the past. And your ego is always going to favor the past because you survived it. That's all the ego wants to do, is survive. You're always going to favor that because even though it may not have been exactly what you wanted, you survived it. And then it looks to the future because, oh, what could be? The clouds finally depart, sunshine comes through, and we're all happy. But to get to that future, you have to take action, and you have to get out of the ego. You have to separate yourself from the ego and realize that it is not helping you. And that was, again, something that Mac, I think, I don't know if he was close to getting there, but he was on his way. But unfortunately, the earthly offerings of the devil that he always talked about, battling the devil, which the devil, I could do another whole podcast on what that really means for us. But
Yeah.
I've kind of had a different realization lately about what the devil may actually be. But he talked about the devil a lot, and he just was never able to get a handle on it and how it impacted him.